One. Amen. Welcome to All People's Unitarian Universalist Church, formerly known as First Jefferson. I'm serving as your co-celebrant in worship today with Colleen Brewer. Colleen took part in Reverend Annie's workshop on how to write a sermon, and she has graciously agreed to present her reflections today. We are happy to have Andy Pierce filling in for Misha as our pianist. Thank you so much, Andy. We're very glad to have both Colleen and Andy here today. I do have a couple of announcements. First of all, a special welcome to longtime friend Sue Lowry, who is here. It's so amazing to see you. Be sure to see her after the service. Next Sunday, which is August 21st, Sacred Hearth, our local CUPS, that's Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, chapter here at All People's Church, is presenting the worship service. So it's going to include a ritual for rain. There will be some drumming during parts of the ritual, and you are welcome to participate and bring your drums, your djembe, your bongos, shakers, rattles, or other handheld instruments. We will now enter into a spirit of community and worship with our musical prelude. Andy is the best. Our call to worship today is number 562 in the hymnal from Mother Teresa. Love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and that action is service. Whatever form we are, able or disabled, rich or poor, it is not how much we do, but how much love we put in the doing. A lifelong sharing of love with others. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and to give back. Please rise for our opening hymn and affirmation. Our opening hymn is number 16. For our spoken affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. Dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. You may be seated. Virginia Thornton will be presenting the story for all ages. Thank Good morning. This story is from a book called Stumbling Toward Enlightenment by Jerry Larkin, who was a Unitarian from our religious tradition, but who became a Zen Buddhist teacher. It's from some of her earliest days as a student of that tradition. This is in her own words, so when I say I mean Jerry. When I first started volunteering at the temple, long before my seminary years, one of the first chores I was given was to clean the temple bathrooms. So I did. So, cleaning a bathroom. Think about, we've all done that, I think all of us, and what you clean and everything. So, she says, when I was done and asked for something else to do, the person running the temple looked at me and said, "Clean the bathrooms." So I went back and noticed that I had really missed a lot. There was gunk around the edges of the sink and on the floor right next to the toilet, and a little nest of hair in one corner behind the door. So I cleaned some more. When I was done, I went and asked for another job to do. And you know the response. Clean the bathrooms. By now you can guess my mood. I was quickly deciding that this mild-mannered person who was giving me instructions was really pranking me, and I'd become caught in his web. But practicing my new friend, patience, I went back. And as I looked at the bathrooms, I noticed stains on the walls I completely missed, and a glob of soap by the sink. There were still spots on the mirror I had cleaned, and tiny bits of newspaper were stuck in its edges where I had hurricaned through in my initial cleaning frenzy. On this third try, I took a deep breath and decided to just slow down and clean inch by inch. I was amazed by the dirt I found. This time, when I went back to say I was leaving, the young man walked with me to the bathrooms, looked at them, and smiled. "Wonderful," he said. I was amazed at how good I felt after cleaning the bathrooms 3 times. I learned that paying attention, really paying attention, feels great, delicious even. And that's our story. that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. May we give in love and in hope. Your contributions will benefit the missions of this church and also our outreach to the larger community as part of our Share the Plate program. Our designated recipient this month is the Eastside Community Assistance Agency in Fort Worth. Please give generously. Will the ushers please come forward?
Our reading this morning is about gratitude, written by John J. Brugaletta, listing some of the things that he's grateful for that he has received from life. I have received water, flowing and pooled, salt and fresh, cold and hot, wind off the ocean, among the trees, over wheat fields, wool for the warmth. I am grateful for these and for the many touching octopi, the common beauty of oleanders, tough-limbed oaks, lithe ocelots, leather-skinned oranges, and pungent onions. About me lie perch from farm ponds, peppers and parsnips, potatoes and telecherry peppercorns, pork and peaches, paprika, together with the sweet sadness of pachelbel. I have been given air to breathe, alders leafing out in spring, crisp apples, deep-flavored apricots, and the shield-like leaves of aspidistras. Grapes and goldfinches, garlic and grass are in my treasury. Jackrabbits and jays, ginger and juncos have come to me as gifts. I am inebriated on biscuits and bass, bread and bears, bicycles and barracudas, on basil and brass. Clouds and rainfall, snow and sleet, sunshine and darkness are my blessings, as are moonlight and firelight, starlight and candlelight. I have been awarded Mozart and Bach, Verdi and Puccini, Homer and Shakespeare, Thomas More and Martin Luther, Herbert and Donne. I have received from on high appreciative dogs and dignified house cats, deer and raccoons, chickens and grosbeaks, friendship and children, fuchsias and dahlias, soil, stone, and steel. May I never be ungrateful for any shelter, any mouthful of food or sip of water, any friendly gesture and offer of help, any touch of understanding. And now will you rise as you're willing and able and sing our hymn number 77, Seek Not Afar for Beauty, This is perhaps unfamiliar to some people, so I'm going to ask Andy to play it all the way through, one verse before we start singing. Number 77.
You may be seated. We honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope. Also, at any time during our service, you are welcome to come forward and light a candle in our meditation center here at this side of the chancel. We focus our thoughts today on the many people in the world who face floods, drought, fires, and war. We turn our thoughts as well to those seeking refuge in another country, to those who are burdened by sickness, hunger, and pain, by sorrow and anxiety, violence, and loss. We pause this morning to share our care for these people and also for those closer to home about whom we are concerned. From our Book of Memory and Hope, we include Salman Rushdie, the author, is recovering in the hospital after being attacked at a speaking engagement. Please keep him in your thoughts. First Jefferson has been recognized as a sustaining donor by Don't Forget to Feed Me. We need to, it's not First Jefferson now, but we were First Jefferson, and so that's how we were acknowledged. But thank you so much for all the efforts, especially, I believe, Joe Burnham, to make sure that we don't forget to feed them. Also today, the second Sunday of the month, is actually Don't Forget to Feed Me Sunday, so see Joe if you are able to give. Sure. Don't Forget to Feed Me is about the pets that are suffering because there's not money for food. There's not money to feed the cat or the dog or the bunny. And so we encourage people to come and bring food to the church. And money. Yep. So thank you so much for your generosity. We now ask you, well, let me add this. May the warmth of this community extend to all who are rejoicing or hurting in our wider world. The stories that live in this community are cherished, even when unshared, as we keep one another in mind during the week ahead. We now ask you to pause for a few moments of quiet meditation to hold and uplift both celebrations and sorrows among us. We'll not have a musical interlude this morning. Instead, we invite you to settle into your seats for a few minutes of silent meditation and personal reflection.
Author Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote these words: "To be really great in little things, to be truly noble and heroic in the insipid details of everyday life, is a virtue so rare as to be worthy of canonization." Or to paraphrase that, to be really great in the mundane little things of life is rare and worthy of sainthood. I believe she was talking about both the way that we perform mundane tasks and the attitude that we have toward performing them. I think she made it clear that this is not something she considered to be a minimal level of moral behavior, but it's a higher level virtue that a person could aspire to if they want to. So why would I want to? I've been inspired by people that I've met that I believe are great in doing mundane things. I see the impact that they have, a positive impact on other people. I see that it appears that they give meaning and purpose to all those little things that have to be done, and they do them as acts of service. Quoting Mother Teresa, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." The question I want to focus on today: how can I, or how can any of us, rise to this level of greatness in doing mundane things? I'll be speaking primarily about changing our thinking, changing our attitude toward doing the mundane things, because I believe when the attitude and the thinking change, the way we do things changes. So I'll mention a few of the things that I'm talking about. You probably already have them in mind. Things like working for a living, commuting to work, talking to people, listening to people, buying and preparing food, brushing your teeth, maybe exercising every day. And it occurred to me as I was writing this that much, much more of this sort of thing is done by those who are caring for others, for children or for adults. So how can we do these recurring tasks with a noble attitude? First, I asked myself, why do we do them at all? I think most of them are things that we do just to keep ourselves and our loved ones alive and functioning for as long as possible. But then there's a question underlying that. Why do that? This comes down to asking, what is the purpose of your life? And this is a very individual thing. Each person could have a different purpose for their life. But I think it makes a big difference in how we do everything, including the mundane things, if we think to ourselves, what is my purpose? And we come up with an answer. So there are different possibilities, as many as there are different people probably, for what the purpose might be. I believe a lot of people's purpose is to experience as many things as they can in their lifetimes, preferably pleasant things. I think there are other people who try for a higher level than that. People, for example, such as Mr. Rogers, the children's TV personality. After his death, a scrap of paper was found in his wallet, and written on the scrap of paper were the words, "Life is for service." So he had decided what the purpose of his life was, and not only wrote it down in 4 words, but carried it around with him. I think each one of us, if we decide on our purpose in living, can look at doing the mundane, necessary things to keep that life going in a slightly different way. I think another way to change our attitude toward mundane tasks is to contemplate our own death, because it's coming. Some cultures and some religions encourage a regular practice of contemplation of what our death will be like, imagining that we are dying. I believe if you do this, you will soon be ready not only for death, but for life. Be ready to look at it in a different way, be able to appreciate more every moment, because every moment is your life. There are also people who have had near-death experiences, and afterward, they seem to appreciate much more every moment of every mundane day. Another way to change our perspective on mundane tasks is a practice of intentional gratitude. So in the reading this morning, were mentioned many things that we might be grateful for: water, wind, friendship, all the way to apples and potatoes and all kinds of animals. Yet it seems that we always want more. I think it's our nature to seek novelty and excitement. And I also think it's evolutionarily beneficial to do that. But I think we've perhaps gone overboard. We have sensationalistic news coming at us from every direction all the time. We have all kinds of entertainment available through technology. We can have movies, music, sporting events, any kind of entertainment you wish at the push of a button. And many of these things are very enjoyable. By contrast, all the little necessary things that we have to do seem kind of humdrum and uninteresting. But I believe if we make it a practice to do an intentional listing of things that we're grateful for, some people even keep a gratitude journal and recommend doing that, writing something every day that they're grateful for. I think this changes your mind just a little bit to not seek quite as much excitement from the outside. Some of the things that I'm really grateful for that seem mundane at first sight, I'm really grateful for hot and cold running water. I'm really grateful for indoor toilets, and I'm really grateful for trash pickup. Not even to mention that we can drive to countless stores within our driving range and just imagine all the things that are on the shelves that we could have. How can we not be walking around all the time in a spirit of gratitude and wonder at what all we have been given? I also want to mention a couple of other qualities: humility and compassion. I believe these can help us to have a nobler attitude toward mundane things. I also want to mention a personal failing of mine in this arena. Sometimes when a friend is telling me a story about something that's happening in their lives, sometimes it starts to be boring and I become inattentive, and I don't want to do that. I wondered for a long time how to overcome that, because these stories are things that happen to people commonly, and we all hear them. Many of us have experienced them. And recently, I realized that I was going about it all wrong. I was focusing on the story. I should have been focusing on the person. Because here's somebody that I care about revealing something about their feelings, about their lives. This is an opportunity for me to make a connection and to develop empathy, compassion, and humility. I would like to quote briefly from the ancient Chinese wisdom of the Tao Te Ching. There are 3 treasures to keep: compassion, simplicity, and humility. Simplicity, in this case, is contentment with what you have and is related to gratitude. I think these 3 treasures work together in us when we can get them to support doing things on a higher, nobler level. I also think as we try to cultivate them, they come to us together. I think compassion and contentment and humility all kind of come together. So I looked for some possible ways to cultivate all 3 of these things. And one surprising way that I found was from a speech by a man named Joseph Brodsky. The title of his speech was "In Praise of Boredom." I'll read a few excerpts and make some comments on them. He starts out, "Boredom is your window on time's infinity, which is to say, on your insignificance in it." And immediately this struck me as probably true, because when we're bored, even a small amount of time, even a few minutes, can seem like almost forever. We can use this time, we can use this boredom to become aware of how small we are in time as well as in space. So I'll repeat, boredom is your window on time's infinity. He goes on, once this window opens, don't try to shut it. On the contrary, throw it wide open. It puts your existence into its perspective, that is, the perspective of infinite time. And he recommends that when boredom happens to you, you don't try to escape it. You submerge yourself into it. In this way, you can develop a different perspective on your life. He goes on to say, you are insignificant because you are finite. And here's the good news. Yet the more finite a thing is, the more it is charged with life, emotions, joy, fears, and compassion. So other ways that I think that we might cultivate all 3 of these things together, in addition to just letting ourselves be bored and pondering our insignificance in infinite time. Mindfulness meditation is one thing. It can slow our minds down from operating at the speed that our electronic devices operate, down to where we can appreciate bird songs and turtles swimming and maybe ants crawling on the ground. In this way, we can interrupt the spiraling addiction to excitement and novelty, and we can notice more about the world around us, focus a little more on what's fundamental in our lives, and perhaps improve how we do mundane things. Ironically, I think if you calm yourself and you're not doing something exciting all the time, when something does happen that's mildly interesting, it seems like a much more special occasion than if you were already doing something that seemed exciting. So it's kind of like if you've been sick and you get well, the contrast makes you feel really great about being well. Another thing that is sometimes recommended, especially for developing compassion, is metta meditation from the Buddhist tradition, in which most of us are probably familiar with it, but you say phrases like, may I be safe, may I be physically well, may I be mentally well, may I find peace, and then you go on to the next person, may she be safe, may she be physically well, and so on. And you repeat these things, widening your focus eventually to everybody. People say that this really can make you more compassionate in your everyday life. So, in summary, a little early, I have brought up the question of how we might learn to have a better attitude toward doing the mundane things of our lives. I've suggested several things that we might do to work toward this goal. Review your purpose for living. Contemplate your dying. Cultivate gratitude, contentment, and a sense of wonder. Cultivate compassion and humility. Allow yourself to be bored sometimes. Practice meditation. In conclusion, I think most of us spend most of the moments of our lives doing mundane things. I want to live those moments purposefully and do the mundane things of life attentively and joyfully. Now our closing hymn will be number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life, will you please stand as you're willing and able. We'll extinguish the chalice. We extinguish the chalice here so that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. And now for our benediction, a few words from Ralph Waldo Emerson. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. May it be so in each of our lives. And that concludes our service. Will you join us for coffee and conversation in the library?